Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to explain my system when it comes to determining when to sell long-term spot positions. I've noticed in the group that a lot of members have difficulties in understanding when to let go of long-term spot positions. They hold their positions too long, round trip a lot of profits. In most cases, they even round trip the entire profits they have made on an uptrend and end up being in spot positions that are underwater. That being said, I think it is a very important topic and I wanted to explain my personal system. Of course, there are different systems that you can apply. I'm not implying that this system that I'm going to explain now is the best. It's just what worked best for me. So as I always say, it is important to build your own system based on different tools and indicators and see what works best for you. There are obviously a lot of tools, indicators, developments that we can analyze to determine when it's time to sell long-term spot positions. I'm going to discuss only a few just to briefly explain what has worked best for me, but please understand that there are also other tools that you can use, obviously. First of all, I want to cover Total 2 and discuss the basics when it comes to understanding when to sell long-term spot positions, right? So to do that, we obviously look at the higher time frame chart for Total 2. Could be also Total 3, could be also Total Market Cap or others, but in this case, I just want to focus on Total 2. Looking at the 3-day chart and assuming we have been buyers around these levels and want to swing these positions to cycle top as close to the cycle top as possible. The first thing that we need to do when we're trading around these levels or when we're trading around these levels, this is also a long-term position which you hold for a few months, is to determine what are the key resistance areas that we can see from this chart, right? And there are obviously a few. Let's assume we are here and we see a few possible resistance areas around 2022 highs and 2021 highs, because this is the only data piece that we can work on, right? So we put this into the chart. You can either choose the wicks or the daily closes. It doesn't really matter when you're navigating the market on a higher time frame. I'll just use the daily close, or in this case the 3-day closes. So we have this level, we have this area, and just note that this is just a line, but obviously it's an area, right? We're not really interested to be that precise when it comes to long-term spot backs, because if you buy something here and you take profits around these levels, it doesn't matter if you sell 10% lower or higher when you're up 200, 300%. So these are two areas of interest. And of course, if you look at the daily close or the highest daily close or the highest 3-day close of 2021, we have the 1.63 trillion area. Now, we know that we have a few areas where we can consider taking profits, right? And if you look at this, and if you bought here, you can see that Total 2 climbed all the way to our first area. And this makes perfect sense to reject from here, right? Because it was a big run and then this was an obvious resistance area. It wouldn't be a mistake if you sold your long-term backs here and re-added here. This would be great profits, right? Then if you didn't take any profits here and you held all the way down to here, but you bought here, the next area of interest would obviously be 2021 highs. This is the last possible selling point before a new all-time high for this index. In other words, it's also a big resistance area and a point where you can assume that a lot of people will be taking profits, especially given that the interest of retail around these levels is probably at the highest level in an entire cycle. So apart from simple supply or demand areas or resistance areas in this case, one tool that I use as well is the RSI on the 3-day and the weekly. I use the daily RSI for more midterm trades, as I always discuss, but when it comes to long-term positions, I'm more interested in the 3-day and the 1 week because they really help you understand where the macro levels lie. So when Total 2, for instance, reached this area here, which was a resistance area that we identified, we can see the 3-day RSI being at 86, which is a massively overbought area, right? So this RSI basically tells you that the market is trading at levels where assets, altcoins or majors, are considered expensive, right? So this is an area where you don't consider buying, but where you consider selling. And you know that at this point, a lot of retail will be interested in the market, right? They will be interested in buying, which is basically why Total 2 has had this massive run. Anything above 80 on the 3-day or the weekly RSI is for me to scale out of long-term positions. It does not make any sense for me to be buying here, at least for longer term. I can be trading the market. There are great opportunities in the market around these areas, especially in the altcoin sector. But when it comes to long-term positions, I understand that this is massively overbought and then I will be a seller. And this RSI confirms that this was right? So this is where altcoins topped. I went into what I would call an altcoin bear market for 6 months, reset the 3-day RSI and the daily RSI fully, and then ran. Same procedure here. We reached 2021 highs, which we identified as the resistance area, and the 3-day RSI also went to an overbought area above 80, in this case to 84, which again tells us that this is an area where assets are considered expensive, and we don't want to buy when things are considered expensive. We want to buy when things are considered cheap. So in this case, we had 2 indicators flashing, suggesting that it's time to sell. The resistance area that we discussed and the 3-day RSI. And you can use the RSI for different indexes. It doesn't have to be total 2. It can be USDT dominance as well. It's the same logic, or total 3, others, it's the same logic. The USDT dominance, again, we got the 3-day RSI at an overbought area here where the index topped and where the market bottomed in August 2024, and then the 3-day RSI reached an oversold area, which to us suggests that this is an area where people can rotate back into stables and take profits from their positions. So if you had confluence from total 2, this just adds confluence to your system, because it's the second index that basically tells you that things are moving around levels and where things are considered rather expensive. Apart from the indexes, I like to use a few tools as well, and I usually discuss this in my corner. Usually when the market is overheated, when things are considered expensive, when the RSI on a higher time frame is at an overbought area, we can see funding rates going up, as we can see in this case in the first part of 2024 or in Q4 2024. We can clearly see from the heat map that funding for most assets was around 100, in many cases above 100, and this is an indicator for me that it is becoming less and less attractive to hold on to long positions, and that means that I can assume that many people will be closing long positions and will also be selling their spot. Anything above 100, in this case Pepe for instance was at 160, is a warning signal for me. Funding can stay high for a long period of time. In this case it was 2 months, but this means that we can gradually scale out of our positions. I'm not suggesting that the first time you see the APR for an asset being around 100 you should instantly sell, but this tells you that it's time to consider scaling out, especially if you have confluence from what we discussed with total 2 or USDT dominance. At the same time, when the market is overheated, you can see total open interest reaching new highs, as we have seen in December for instance, where we have seen total open interest at the highest level ever recorded. And this basically suggests to you that there are a lot of new market participants in the market trying to chase prices on perps. And this also reflects a lot of greed, right? And when there's a lot of greed, you don't want to buy, you want to sell, because you know that whales or other investors that have bought when open interest was at these levels here, and when only a few people were interested in the market, will be taking their profits because they consider this new influx of capital from retail as exit liquidity. You can also use the fear and greed index to understand greed better. Usually when we see total open interest at these levels, or when we see funding rates at these levels here, or when we see total market cap or total 2 at the 3-day overbought area, the fear and greed index is at extreme greed, because that's basically the period when most people are interested in crypto. And when this is at extreme greed, you have another indicator that it is time to start scaling out of your positions over a short period of time, and it's definitely not a time to buy. So these were only a few indicators that I use. It could be that we don't always get confluence from all indicators, and not all indicators that are aligning at the same time. But if you have 3-4 different tools or indicators suggesting that it is actually time to scale out of spot bags, I think that's already a good sign. Of course, when these warning signals flash, emotionally speaking, it is difficult to let go, because that's where people are excited about crypto, where people call about higher and higher levels, and it is difficult to sell positions when when you could expect that things go higher and you will miss out the next run in the market. But as you can see from December, for instance, where we had all these indexes and tools flashing, prices have dropped from these areas, and these tools are quite reliable comes to giving you a good understanding or where we stand in the market from a macro perspective. And as I said at the beginning, you can be selective when it comes to picking the tools and indicators that work for you. This is what I personally use. Of course, I also look at macro developments, also look at stock markets, the dollar. There are different things that you can look at to build a picture and understand if it's time to sell. I didn't want to complicate this video. I wanted to make it as simple as possible, just discuss a few tools that helped me in the past understand when to take profits. And if you've been following my corner, you know that we've been taking profits in March, you know that we've been taking profits in December, and the people that followed me don't regret it because now they have the capital available to buy it. So I hope this is helpful. I think it's a very, very important topic because I constantly receive questions about this. I see people being frustrated, being down on their long-term positions because they didn't take profits. So I really hope this is helpful to you. As always, let me know under fundamentals if you have questions, if you have comments. I'm more than happy to help. Until then, take care and stay safe trading, fam.